Hey, 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 you know what time it is? All right, welcome back to Rock Doc's Reading Room. In this episode, we will continue the story of where we left off last time. So I'm the road manager now for Edgar Winter's White Trash in the early 70s. Not too much experience, none actually, but I'm learning as I go along. Learned a hard lesson in the last episode. But this episode's going to be a little bit different because it's going to deal with my desire to be a drummer. After all, I was a frustrated drummer, and that's what led me into the music business to begin with. And now we'll hear a couple of stories about what it meant to be a frustrated drummer, but be on the business side of the business. Okay, so my book, Rock Doc. All right. So I had just screwed up the sound at a gig. It was really like our first gig in Buffalo. And I learned a good lesson and I moved on from there. Okay. I faced a steep learning curve, but over many weeks, my work became easier. About 8 months after I had started, Rick's words, "Who knows what will happen in the future," took on new meaning. So if you remember, Rick Derringer had gotten me the job. And Rick knew I was a drummer, and I was looking for a job as a drummer. There was no job as a drummer, but this job became available, and Rick thought that I could do it. And in order to convince me, he told me to take this job because you never know. Maybe I'll get to play the drums in the future. All right, we go on from there. Edgar's powerful drummer, Bobby Ramirez, had a problem. Years of playing hard and fast had left his hands looking like raw meat. The news from a hand specialist was not good. Bobby needed a small operation and wouldn't be able to pick up his sticks for at least a month. I didn't want to be the drummer in Edgar's band. Bobby was great and one of my best friends. Cool dude, man. Great drummer. I'll tell you a little quick story about Bobby. He grew up in Port Arthur, Texas, same place as Janis Joplin. Now, he was a couple of years younger than Janis and didn't really know Janis, but knew of Janis. And he confirmed to me what a horrible time she had in high school, how people made fun of her, how she was exactly what she said she was back then. And of course, then she became who she became and snubbed her nose at all of those high school friends. All right, let's see. So, Bobby was great and one of my best friends, but I definitely wanted to fill in for him during the one important gig he would miss at the Capitol Theater in Port Chester, New York. I was sure that if I did a decent job, word would get out and possibly catapult me into a job as a drummer. Not that being a road manager was bad. I was learning a lot, but it wasn't the same as performing. And I began an unrelenting campaign. Bobby was my biggest supporter. He had heard me play, knew I could cut it, and even offered to coach me, and he did coach me. He showed me the beats to various songs, etc., etc. Okay. But the reaction of the rest of the band was lukewarm at best. Their main concern was not my ability as a drummer, but it was the rest of it. Their main concern was not my ability as a drummer, but the loss of a road manager. Come on, I pleaded, adding that Paul Hoffman, one of our road crew, would work out just fine taking over for me that night. I couldn't budge Edgar Winter or Jerry LaCroix, the leaders of the band. I even offered to pay for an extra roadie. No dice. I was bummed out big time, and I made sure they knew it. Bobby had the operation. During rehearsals for the Capitol Theater show, Edgar filled in as the drummer. Edgar was an amazing musician, man. He could play sax, he could play keyboards, he could play drums, sing, songwriter, really an underappreciated talent to this day. Okay. So one night, rehearsal went very late. I left, went to my room, and took a quaalude. Now, for all of you who grew up around the time that I grew up, you know what a quaalude was. For those of you who didn't grow up around then, it was a sedative hypnotic pill that we would take to get high. The saying used to go, you want to laugh? Take a half. But they were very popular in the day, and they would make you very whatever, and react slow and feel very high. Okay, so I had taken a Quaalude. The lude had taken its effect, and I was sedated and drifting off when Edgar burst into my room. Okay, Neil, here's your chance. What? Now or never, Neil. Come try out for the band. You've got to be kidding me. Not now, Edgar. Edgar had asked me if I was going to return when I left to go to my room. Of course, it was a setup. He didn't know I would take a Quaalude, but he guessed I might smoke a joint or two and go to sleep. I knew the songs. I'd secretly practiced them when the band was not around. And although my style was different from Bobby's, I was sure my playing would be more than sufficient. Not that night. I played everything at half speed. My arms and legs just wouldn't move the way I wanted them to. It was a joke, and I was crushed. I sulked for days. Bobby Colomby from the band Blood, Sweat, and Tears got us an okay fill-in. Like I said, he was okay. After the gig, most of the guys admitted I would have done a better job. No kidding, I answered sarcastically. Over time, I accepted the fact that I wasn't going to make my living as a rock drummer. I began to understand the business side of the music and realized there were great opportunities in touring, management, and production. Toward the end of the 6 years I was in the music business, though, I finally did get the opportunity to play professionally. All right, so I didn't get to play that night. I accepted it. I still was a good knee drummer, and I still sort of practiced in my own head. But I gave up on the idea that I was going to be a drummer, and I really started to focus on the business end of the business. So then I worked my way into different jobs. I left Edgar. I worked for D. Anthony. And then I became, the title was General Operations Director for Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which meant that I took care of everything, including live performance, on the road, anything that had to deal with them on stage. It was my job. All right. So Greg and I became really good friends. And I'll go on from there. Greg Lake of the band Emerson, Lake and Palmer and I co-produced a record for an artist named Michael Baldwin, who came to our notice through a business connection of my father's. So this was an amazing thing. When I first went to London to work for ELP, one of my father's business associates happened to be managing an artist named Michael Baldwin on the side. And when he heard that I was going and I was going to be working with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, he immediately gave my father this demo tape. And my father passed it along to me, and I really didn't know what to do with it. I moved into Greg Lake's house initially when I first moved to London. Greg and I became close. And one night I pulled out the cassette and I said, hey, I got this tape. I don't know what to do with it. Why don't you have a listen? Greg listened to it and he really liked the artist. And he says, hey man, let's bring this guy over here and let's you and I produce the album. And so basically, I don't know how much, and I continue and I say, I'm not sure how much actual producing I did, although I gave suggestions. But I did get to play drums for the album. And that was what was amazing. Not only did he say, come on, we'll produce the album together, but then he looked at me and he said, and you can play the drums. And it was like, I could play the drums? Yeah, are you kidding? So, I'm set up to play the drums, not really co-producing, but I'm giving him suggestions. I'm listening to what's going on. Greg was demanding, and getting the parts down exactly the way he wanted was hard. It didn't help that I was intimidated playing alongside him and the other world-class musicians brought in for the sessions. But when I got it right, what a rush. I mean, I only made a couple of tunes on the album. Carl Palmer came in and played. But some of the other musicians, I got to be friendly with the sax player Mel Collins, for example, and you could look him up. He's very famous and has played with all the early English bands, a great guy, and there were various other people there as well. So it was the realization of a dream for me and something that I was always grateful to Greg for. And that's, I'll stop right there. All right, so I hope you enjoyed my story. That's it for today. Let me see, can I give you a preview? Yeah, I'm going to go on from there in the next part of the book. a little more about Edgar, and then D'Anthony, which was the next job I had in the music business, and he was quite a character, to say the least. All right, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on my posts and maybe on DST iHeartRadio Saturdays and Sundays at 3 o'clock, and of course, I'll keep the reading room going at this time on Mondays. All right, have a great week, and I'll see you all soon, and remember, keep on rocking.